Hello, 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 and welcome to the Stride Report podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Allen. How's it going, man?
Ben, I'm doing my annual friend summer trip to Jersey, and we all woke up this morning a little hurting as I'm looking at all of them sitting on the couch right now from our raucous Bible study that we were doing last night. Um, so we're all moving a little slow today, but I brought my A game. We will be fine, and this is why we have you, right, to kind of glue everything together. So not too stressed about it.
Yeah, let's not put too much on me. We are working on weaning our 1-year-old right now, so sleep is a little challenging, but
Fair.
I can step up to the plate. It was a good night last night, so we're good. I can cover. Like you, not necessarily Bible study that was happening last night, but
Of course.
so some fun stuff, right? Some not so fun stuff. No
Mm,
ratings and reviews for I think the
no,
second week in a row. So would love to
devastating.
see that. As we're going through, we're inching closer to our top 10 in the rankings. Make sure you guys are giving us some love, as I got to think we're a top 10 podcast in your lineup. So throw us a rating and review.
I would like to think so. I think at this point, if you're willing to sit down through an episode, we got to be at least top 10. But well, even if we're not in the top 10 of our rankings, though, that is what we will talk about today. We're going to talk about team rankings. We talked about just missed honorable mentions along with 25, 24, 23. This time around, we'll be talking about the other portions, which are men and women for 22, 21, 2019, 18, and 17. So, unless you have any further notes, let's start with 22 on the men's side.
Let's get into it. And on the men's side, we have the Princeton men, who are certainly losing a lot from last year's lineup, but they do return a solid top three led by Miles Hogan, who ran very, very well this past year. 13:37 in the 5K at the East Regional, to qualify for the East Regional, excuse me. And then you also have some interesting guys behind him in Jacob Ninow. Is that?
Sure. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, this is tough. And Jackson Shorten. That one's a little bit easier. I don't love this team, but Princeton always seems to be able to put together a solid, deep lineup that's full of interchangeable parts, usually in that like 4 through 5 scorer positions. They always bring in very good recruiting classes that restock their overall talent level. They do generally lose obviously graduate transfers who are unable to run for the program after their 4th year in the Ivy League. I don't love this, but I think combined with some solid returners, and again, just the overall depth that this lineup, this team generally has, I think this is a fine spot at number 22, where, again, we expect them to qualify for nationals, but we're not expecting them to light the world on fire once they get there.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit. I do like this team. I don't really know if they're going to be that much worse than last year, which I guess is reflected in the ranking. But like, I think Miles Hogan's like sneaky good. I think he's going to be a potential All-American. I think Ninow has a lot of upside. I refuse to believe that Short and 827 steeplechaser is not going to be better. Like
Yep.
Weston Brown, great pedigree, 50th at Nuttycombe last year. Like there's guys like Connor McCormick, a 356 miler, 11th at Ivy's. Like there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of depth. Now that's been the story of Princeton for
Right.
that's how long, but I mean, it's just depth. And I think they're going to have a pretty high floor along with some upside. And like, even if some of that upside doesn't translate, then who cares? Like they still have other dudes. They still have some guys that I think they're going to be really, really solid. So what do you think their ceiling is?
Yeah, I think this is probably where we differ. Is I agree on the, hey, they have a high floor. They have enough pieces. They have the pedigree, like you said. This is what they do. They piece together enough to put together top 25 finishes at nationals. I think as far as a ceiling, though, I'm not that bullish on them. I think they could get all the way up to, I think 17 is probably where I put them at their ceiling.
I'm in retrospect maybe not quite as high as maybe I led on to believe. I'd probably put him 15 maybe. By
Okay.
comparison as their ceiling, maybe 14 as their ceiling. But it's also like, I don't want to say it's a young squad, but there's a lot of younger guys who could be pivotal in terms of their stability scoring wise. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, newer guys stepping up to lead this program, right? Not necessarily that they haven't been in the program, but they haven't been in a position to be scorers for at least important scorers for this lineup with the amount of depth that they've had in the past. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Again, the talent that we saw on the track, as you highlighted, with Shorten, for example, it'll be interesting to see how that translates, because
Yeah.
generally we've seen that move fairly well for Princeton athletes, although there has been some hit or miss along the way in terms of, hey, you have a big breakout on the track and then you come to cross country, we have maybe high expectations, and they're good, but they're just not great, right? They're like
Yeah,
top
like
100
Tripos,
names.
like Ed Tripos is the perfect
Right.
name that comes to mind.
Exactly. So again, that's why
Who's
I'm a
more
little
important? Who's the most important guy on this team then?
um I think probably Shorten, just because I think he has more up. He has probably the most upside out of anybody besides Hogan, and if he becomes more a more potent scorer for them, I think he's their avenue to, again, more or of a top 15, top 20 finish than a top 25.
I would take Nee now, 28, 23, 10Ks, cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Great pedigree. I think he's going to be their second scorer. I think he could
I
have a
agree.
breakout season.
I actually agree. I think he's their penciled in number two, which is why I think, hey, if Shorten becomes that number two, then I
That's
think
true.
this is a really, really exciting lineup, a lot more
That's true.
exciting lineup. So,
I agree.
all right, let's move on to the number 22 on the women's side, and that is the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Again, another team losing their top scorer in Racina Machu, but they do bring back some very good names. And I think chief among those, right, is why am I losing this
You're
name?
looking for Willow Collins and Logan
Ooh,
Hofsty.
yes, there we go. Thank you, sir. What do you? So I think this is an interesting team because I think they've gotten a lot of buzz from us, from maybe some other
It's true.
coaches, and again, you're losing your top ace and you're replacing them with good scorers, but I don't know how great the scores are going to be. Now they have a lot of interesting names below them, but how optimistic are you about this team in comparison to maybe some of the rest of our staff?
Well, I think that depends on what your definition of optimistic is.
Yeah.
Am I optimistic on the idea that they could, like reach a certain ceiling? No, but do I think they have an exceptionally high floor? Yeah, I do. Like I think they're probably pretty complete through five, maybe complete through seven. Like Logan Hofsty, Willow
Yeah.
Collins, Jessica Friedland. I have no idea how to say that name, and Jade Ripkema. Like those are all pretty solid names through four, and I think they're going to find a five. Do I also think anyone's going to be an All American? Maybe not. Like it could be Hofsty. I think Hofsty has good upside, but
Hmm.
I don't know what they're like. I don't know if their ceiling's more than like 19 or 18.
Yeah, it's honestly not dissimilar to what we were just talking about on the Princess side, right? Where it's like, hey, enough good names, got enough good pieces, but not necessarily any women who are going to just light the world on fire when it
Yeah.
comes to that national meet. I do like the incoming freshmen that they have in Charlotte Dillon, 948 in the 3K, Ava Sutherland, who did qualify for the U20 World XC Championships. I like those names as potential flyers. Again, you have a lot of women in here that have good high school pedigree. Obviously, Hofsty is up there, but then you also have someone like Kira Saavedra, who also qualified for NXN. I agree with you. There's just too many names here and too
Yeah.
much talent that they aren't going to piece together a really competent top five. I just don't know who's going to be a top 60 name even in this lineup. and
I
that's
think
what scares me a
Collins.
little bit.
I think Collins and Hosty could be top 60 names, but I'm talking like 59th and 60th. Like
Right. Yeah,
that would be
exactly.
kind of be it. So I mean, like I still think it's a good team. I can tell you this: like we talked to one coach in the western half of the country who I really respect a lot, and they were like, "Hey, watch out for Gonzaga. Like we think they're going to be a massive problem." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I don't know if they see them as 22 in the country or higher or lower. I don't know, but um, Gonzaga's getting a lot of respect. So good for them.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I mean, we talk about these different kind of lineup structures a lot when we're doing these previews, and we have historically seen where you can finish, you can be a top 15 in the team in the country without any All Americans if you have a really great solid pack. So
Yeah.
if you have Hofsty and Willows who are again top 60, top 70 names, and then you just have a bunch of women in that like 100-ish range, then hey, you can exceed expectations there. You just have to be super compact with that pack, and it has to be like top 110, not top 130, because that difference is pretty substantial when you're putting 3 or 4 women in that group. So again, there is potential if they pack up really, put a real solid number of women all around that like 100th place finish. They certainly could exceed this ranking,
That would be
but
a huge result.
right, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like that's where they got that's their path, I think, to any ceiling, which is again why we're probably pretty low on their ceiling. Is going to require a lot of improvement, but there is that potential right there. At the very worst, I think they're a team that qualifies for nationals and is again a bottom 13.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you there. I'm moving us off of Gonzaga, going to TSR number 21 on the men's side, and it's Arkansas. And I have to be honest, Ben. I don't like this team. They lose Yassin Abdallah. They lose Patrick Kiprop. They lose Karami Yego. They bring back Ben Shearer, who I like a
Yeah.
lot, who I think is crazy
Mhm.
reliable. I think he will be an All-American. He made a great leap on the track. Timothy Chisondon, you run 27:55 in the 10K. You should be an All-American, but like I don't trust him that much on the grass. He's just generally inconsistent.
Yeah.
And then the rest of Brian Masai, is he going to be your third name? Like James Sankey, they brought him over from Kenya, 29:42 at 6,000 feet. Yeah, it's a good conversion, but it makes them stand out any more than any other international name that's come over, right? In the depth past like 4, not great. And yet we just respect their history so much to the point where I think they're just going to somehow find their way into the top 25.
And they're also someone that you wouldn't be surprised if we hear in like the next 5 days that they just sign someone who's run 28:20 in the 10K, right? From overseas.
Yeah.
So you can never rule out that possibility, or just getting someone on the transfer portal last minute, right? Now the clock is ticking on that. Like classes are going to start in a couple weeks here,
Very soon.
but
Yeah.
it certainly could happen for this Arkansas team. Yeah, I think Chesedin is the name that stands out for me. He came in from Akron. We were pretty high on him a couple years ago as a potential potent scorer for this team, and he just wasn't really that. Now, the talent is still there. Obviously, the track times are very solid. 27:55 in the 10K is awesome. To your point, can he translate that to the grass? And if he can, then I think this ranking, we both feel a lot more comfortable, right? All right, we have Shearer, who we like. We have Chesedin, who we like. They'll figure out the back three. At least they'll have 2 top guns. But if he's not that low stick, or at least facsimile of a low stick, I'm like, I mean, this is a team that finishes like 30th at nationals in my mind. So and a lot of this is relying, I think, on him stepping up to at least be a solid or above average number 2 for this program, because outside him, I just don't see anybody else who can really fill that role at all.
Yeah, like Masai, if Masai translates his best performances on a consistent basis, then this is
true.
A great team, but he's just not consistent. And that's very frustrating because he's really talented. Mm-hmm. He's really talented. Yeah, I don't know. I'm down on this team, but We've also seen them, like you said, they'll sign someone last minute, or someone will kind of come out of nowhere. Like, who's to say that, they're two Kenyan additions, Sankey and Lokorati.
Yeah.
Who's to say that one of them is not like way better than like maybe we even know? And they turn out to be fantastic low sticks. In that case, this is not a strong enough ranking, but the depth is scarce to say the least.
Yeah. Again, it's kind of like the we've talked about other programs, Alabama chief among them, where it's like, all right, you have your top runners, and then everything else you just figure out. But this Arkansas team doesn't even have the top runners that you feel that confident about, which again is all the more reason why 21 feels appropriate. And I know I sound down on all of these teams that we've talked about before. I promise we will get to ones that I like more. I am just not, and I think you could agree, not that enthusiastic about this back half of the men's rankings. At least it's just not. These teams are very unproven, which I think makes this season all that more exciting, because we're going to see a lot of people step up, because someone's going to have to. There can't just be the top 60 names that we feel good in, and then no one else fills in the top 100. There are going to be guys that step up, and there's going to be teams that way exceed our expectations, because someone's going to have to, because there's this void that's sitting here. So, hey, Arkansas could be that team, but I also could see them, if they weren't in the South Central, not making nationals at all.
Ooh, you think it'd be that bad?
I think that's, again, it won't happen because it's in the South. They're in the South Central, but I do think that, again, I think worst case scenario, they're the worst team at nationals.
Man, if Texas was still good, could you imagine that scenario where Arkansas? I don't think. I still think with this lineup they would advance regardless of region. I can't believe that they wouldn't qualify. They're just not. I just don't see that happening. It's Arkansas.
I agree, and that's why we have them at 21. It's Arkansas, but I don't love all the question marks here. I think you have Ben Shearer, and then you have question marks pretty much throughout this lineup. Now the high variance question marks, no doubt. Again, things could pop off really, really well, and I could look really, really dumb here. But I think there is also that downside as well.
Speaking of Arkansas at 21, with a really strong top few scorers and then no depth, the Arkansas women occupy TSR number 21 on the women's side. The lineup is basically the same as last year, except you just switched Mia Cochran with Josephine Mora. Peyton Noe, elite, truly elite, going to be an awesome star. Sydney Thorvaldsen, 11th at NCAA championships in 2023, rallied back from an injury last fall. She'll still be excellent. Mora is probably a step down from Cochran, but not so much so that it's going to drastically alter this team. She was 14th at Big 12s. And then things get bad. They have Olivia Palomar, who ran 16:09 for 5K. She could be their fourth, I guess. She had a decent spring. Bradley Weimer, fifth at GLVCXC championships in 2023 for Division II, ran 34:23. But the depth is severely lacking, to frankly say the least. I mean, I have no idea. I tried to piece together who their top 7 would be. I got to 5 names in. I'm I don't know who these last 2 names are going to be.
When you're putting in the graphic, their chief accomplishment is 59th at Chili Pepper cross country. It's not a great resume. I will say on the women's side, I am higher on Arkansas just because I do feel a lot more confident in their top 2. I feel like these are both women who at their best could be top 10 in the country, right?
Yep.
And that just gives you so much more margin for error. Whereas the men's side, one, I don't think either of those, their top 2 guys have the potential of being top 10. I also think there's just a lot more question marks there than with Noe and Thorvaldsen. I feel really good about them. Now, top 10 for both of them, I think is aggressive, at least for Thorvaldsen. But you wouldn't be shocked to see them both in the top 25, right? And I think that's why I just, again, feel pretty confident about this team. Morrow should be good enough, right, to be a competent third scorer. And then, again, if they have, their 4th and 5th runners just, not coming dead last at nationals, this will be a team that finishes pretty much in the top 20.
The math still favors them, even if the bottom 2 are so far back where it doesn't matter. As long as the top three perform,
Right.
mathematically, you're still guaranteed to be top 25, I think.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm
I
saying.
forget what the stat is.
If they just don't come in last, like if basically they just don't come in last, this is a team that could very easily finish in the top 20. So I am confident that they're going to piece together something like not even competent, but like not terrible in that fourth and fifth scoring spots, and then they're just going to let their top three carry them, and specifically really Noe and Thorvaldsen.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens with Mara, butchering that name, but I think she's that third one where it's like I could see her being an All American. I could also see her being 100th at the national team. Like, I think that's her floor, but I also just don't. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, anything else for
It's
Arkansas
such a
women?
thick.
It's
I
an
don't
easy
know.
one to talk about, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what more I'm supposed to say there, but the opposite, however, is true
Sure.
for the California Baptist Lancers on the men's side. TSR number 20, they come in and Ben, I'm not gonna lie, I really like this team. I
I
really,
would say I like them too. Here we go. This is the first men's team I actually really like.
I like this team. I think we may have snubbed them of a few spots. I think they're pretty good. Valentin Soka has been unreal over the
Yep.
last year, at least in 2025. He's been 734 3K, 1302 5K, 2737 10K. And then you get Pedro Marin back, 1345K, 2825 10K. Brett Rushman from England, 1338 on the roads, 13th at Euro XC. Jude DeVries, he's the NAIA 5K champion. Ernesto Ruiz, 849 in the 3K steeple. Ahmed Ferris ran 1410 in like, I forgot. I forgot what the note was, but something in like in high school. I almost wasn't sure if I believe that. And then Victor Rosas, 1403 5K. That's their top seven, but they could realistically have five other names crack their top seven throughout the fall.
Yeah, I again, I really like this team. This is probably the team I've been the highest on that we've talked about. I like Tulane for a lot of the same
Mm-hmm.
reasons. At the 23 spot, as I like CBU. Again, Soka, as you said, has been on absolute tear. I really like Brett Rushman. You know, I'm a sucker for guys who compete well at a high level in cross country at whatever level they're at. 13th at the Euro cross country. I really like that result. Again, the difference between a British cross country race and a U.S. cross country race cannot be overstated.
Mm-hmm.
The how wet and soggy and just difficult those English races are is really no comparison to what we normally see out of cross country over here. Although we could see it, especially at Missouri this year, we could
That's
see
true. Yeah.
maybe a little bit more difficult conditions there, but. I think this should translate really well for them. I like him as a potential third scorer for them, and then you just go through the rest of the guys that you talked about, and you almost feel like they're fairly interchangeable, which is really exciting when you're talking about a top seven where you have the fourth guy could come from your fourth scorer could come from your seventh guy the last
Mm-hmm.
race, and then they could come from your sixth guy the next. You could get a lot of volatility there in a good way, right? Because they're so interchangeable and you have enough depth. And that again leaves me to believe that hey, this is probably almost the worst that they could finish in my mind
Yeah.
at number 20. I think their floor is very high, but I also think that their ceiling is actually way higher than any of these teams that we've talked about
So what's
so
their
far.
ceiling?
I think they could go 13.
I would go as high as 10 or 11.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a little nervous about putting them ahead of some teams that we've just have moved up in our rankings. That we've just talked about offline in the last couple of days. But
True.
outside of them, I do really like this squad.
Well, that's why it's their ceiling, right? It's not like
Yeah.
where we should have placed them. I think
Right.
I think people were like, well, why did you guys then rank them at 20? And it's like, well, they lose an All American in Zuhair
Yeah.
Rodain. Like that's a lot of score. Like you can have all the depth in the world, but if you don't have a secondary low stick, I don't know I don't know how you're making up all of that scoring in once. Plus they lost a few other guys, so like they still have to fill out the rest of that depth, right? So like they're still things that they have to fill in their lineup. There's still guys who have to prove themselves and actually translate it. Like there's some uncertainty there. It's not like this is a flawless team, but I like them. I like them a lot.
Yeah, and to your point, we like a lot of these guys, but a lot of them aren't proven in terms of at the NCAA Division One level.
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to be a solid third or fourth, fifth scorer for this program? Now they have a lot of options. So hey, if one or two of these guys don't turn out, that's fine, as long as some of them do. But there is the potential that none of them really turn into the high level scores that they need them to be, which is why you put them at 20th. Because hey, if none of them do, which I think would be an exceedingly rare outcome, maybe they're 25th, right? But as long as like two of them do, 20th is like the nice sweet spot. Now, if all of them do, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a different story there.
Yeah.
So, all right, how about you kick us off on the 20th side for the women?
Let's move on to the West Virginia women who are coming off of, I mean, I don't know West Virginia's history, but the greatest performances in West Virginia women's history, certainly in cross country. Now, you lose Kaylee McCabe, big loss. Cannot be overstated there. But you bring back one of the stars of the 2024-2025 season, and that is Joy Norcutt, 17th at NCAA's last year, ran 31-34 in the 10K. You also bring back Emily Bryce, 69th at NCAA's last year. You have a group of women who have a lot of potential. Naomi Kemboy, chief among them, 15:39 in the 5K. Mm-hmm. You have Alyssa Sauro, who was Foot Locker finalist in 2022. You have someone in Tekla Lucrale, who ran 32:32 on the roads in the 10K. It's Alexis Lamb, 16:10 in the 5K. It feels like to me, and I'm curious to see what you think, there's a little bit more margin for error on the back end with this team in terms of, hey, you could last year it needed to be that top five, right? If that top five wasn't hitting on all cylinders, they were not going to have a good day. Now last year they did at the national meet, so they had a fantastic performance. It feels to me, hey, you can move some of these women up and down in the lineup a little bit more, but that front end obviously just isn't going to be as potent as it was last year, and that's why they fall all the way down to 20 in our rankings.
Yeah, I will say, so Josh Grenade, who does a lot of really good reporting on recruits and mainly like international names, commented on one of our post about West Virginia, just a name, and I searched it and I didn't find anything. So maybe there's potential that they bring it. I mean, that's half of these international names that you just don't know. There's no documentation anywhere. So there's potential that they bring in someone new, but you look at Tekla Lucrale, like she was supposed to be like a stud, like really, really good. And with respect to her, she just wasn't. Like she really struggled trying to get, acclimated to the NCAA scene. Now, let's say she does pop off. This team is better than 20th, right? Yeah. Joy Norcutt is awesome. Naomi Kemboy, if she's going to be able to translate any of that to the grass, really good. Emily Bryce, I think, is one of the most underrated support scorers in the country. I think she's fantastic, really consistent, really stable in terms of the scoring. And Alexis Lamb improved a lot. I think she's actually better than what she showed last fall. I want to say she was like 14th at the Mid-Atlantic region in 2023. So like they have some options, right? They have a Foot Locker finalist and Alyssa Sauro from she was a Foot Locker finalist in 2022. So there's pieces here, but the depth is probably more scarce than it was last year, and the firepower is noticeably more limited. So at that point, like we have no choice but just say, hey, it's 20th. We're guessing here. They're probably not going to finish the season at 20th, but we have no idea.
Yeah, I think they maybe have more potential on the back end. Sauro is the one that I'm penciling in. Hey, maybe she actually has the potential of breaking into this top five and at least giving them 6 options. And that's more than maybe what they had last year. But I'm with you. It really probably depends on Lucrale. Like if she ends up being the woman that they thought they were bringing in, then this lineup gets way more potent, and you potentially have 2 low sticks rather than just one.
I would agree. Do we have anything further on West Virginia?
I do not. Let's move on to the number 19 team in our men's rankings, and that is the Washington Huskies, who also put together one of the more intriguing lineups that we've talked about, at least so far in our rankings. You lose some interesting scorers from last year, but you bring back a lot of the same guys that were at least part of this lineup last year. Chief among that, Evan Jenkins, Tyrone Gorza. You add Ruben Reyna from Arkansas, who again more middle distance focused, but you have Washington team that has been able to get a lot out of those kind of guys. Think the Nathan Greens, the
Yep.
who am I forgetting?
Luke Hauser.
Luke Hauser, who was probably the best example of that, right? There isn't a whole lot of oomph to this lineup, but they have guys that are super talented that could, if they take a step forward, give this lineup a little verve to it. And then you have guys that are coming in terms of true freshmen in Josiah Tostenson and Owen Powell, who also could, hey, if they step on the scene and are able to contribute right away, this lineup looks a lot stronger. I think this is probably the team in the top 20 out of all the years we've been doing this that has the most question marks about it, just because I don't really know what this lineup is going to look like fully formed. And I truthfully don't know what anybody's ceiling is in this group too. It is super volatile. We have information on them, but I don't really know how to utilize a lot of it because a lot of it is conflicting information. You have guys who have run low 28 minutes in the 10K, but haven't really done a whole lot in cross country, right? They've been good, but they haven't been great. All this to say, I'm confused about this team. I don't know how you feel about Washington.
I think they have tons of upside.
Yeah.
Of upside, ridiculous upside. The problem is that Tostenson and Powell, who are the top 2 recruits in the country, at least according to our top 50, they're not listed on the actual XC roster, which makes me think that they might be redshirted, which is interesting. But, we saw JoJo Jordan get his redshirt pulled last fall with Wake Forest. So,
Yep.
Who's to say? But Jenkins is way better than what he showed at NCAA XC last fall, right? I think Gorzy is, significantly better than just what he's done so far. I think he's got a great ceiling. Jamar Diestel, 14th at Big Ten XC, 28-27. Ruben Reyna, 2-time top 15 finisher at SEC XC. I mean, there's a lot of different names here. I think there's names that go beyond 7 that you can kind of piece together here. I'm with you. I don't entirely know what this lineup's going to look like. But I just refuse to believe that this lineup isn't going to be good or isn't going to be competitive. There's just enough talent and enough names there for them to be, I think, a real problem. I could have imagined us putting them up a little bit higher in the rankings.
Yeah, I shouldn't say that my confusion means that I'm down on them. I'm actually really excited about this team because I'm so confused. I just need to see it, kind of. I think that, to your point, the pedigree on this lineup is as good as anyone, probably outside of the top 10 in our rankings, and maybe even better than some of the teams in our top 10 rankings in terms of what they brought in from the high school ranks. So again, there is a ton of untapped potential here. Just someone needs to pop off. And I think Jenkins could be that All-American, but they really do need someone to just take a step forward, be a true low stick for this team because they have so many pieces. I'm not that worried about them putting together a competent 4th and 5th runner. They really, where all of the upside comes from is someone taking a true step forward, at least one person taking a step forward and being an All-American threat, because they just don't have a clear All-American runner at the moment. And again, Jenkins is probably your closest to it. but they just need, again, keep coming back to oomph. They just need that oomph at
They
the
need
top
them.
of their lineup, and that'll be what dictates how high they finish at the national meet.
But there's two avenues to that. One, I can actually see there's two, I guess, talking points, I should say. One, there's multiple avenues for them to get that oomph, which I don't
Absolutely,
think you
yes.
can say about any other team that we've talked about so far, at least not to the same extent of Washington. Two, my second being, it's a question of when do we think, like at what point in the season do we think Washington figures out what their top five is, like what their legitimate top five is? Is it Big
Uh,
Tens?
yeah, I was gonna say Big Tens.
You basically get into the postseason, you're like, okay, we might know what our team is.
Yeah, and I mean, it might be when they make their decisions on their top two freshmen, whether or not they're running or not, right? And I think that's probably an underrated subplot is, hey, if they do maybe come in with the intention to redshirt, how good do they have to look for them? Like, how good does the team have to look for them to say, hey, we just need one or two guys to really push us across the line. Let's throw these guys in and see if they can make that difference. I'm curious to see if they end up exceeding expectations, which again they absolutely could. Looking at all these names that they have in this potential lineup, if they do say, hey, let's make a harder push for this now rather than waiting in a couple years.
All right, I am going to take us off of Washington and transition us to the Wisconsin women at 19. Um, I like them a little bit more after writing about them, but like it's the best way to put it is like they're not a flashy team. They're just not. It's depth, it's consistency, it's stability, it's just solid all around performances. They have, in theory, one of the higher floors of really any team that we've talked about on the women's side. I really struggle to see the avenues for this team to be anything more than like a top 15 or 16 team this fall. It's really challenging. Now, and I do want to get this. I texted Suvir, who's a photographer for us and a photographer at Wisconsin, trying to get this name right. And it's, and I butchered it so bad apparently that he had to text me. He was like, "I love the pod. You're butchering the name." It is Leone Valemsa.
Valemsa. All right, so
Valemsa, because I guess it's German or something like that.
yeah. I was about to say that sounds more Central European
Exactly.
than what we were going for.
But she could be basic. She's like basically their only firepower, right? If she's as good in 2025 as she was in 2023, she was just okay in 2024. Then like I like this team, but I just don't. I don't know what to get excited about, but I also don't know like what to be down on them about either.
Yeah, I mean, this has kind of been the story for Wisconsin over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Now, I think last year's team had a more upside before a not great finish at NCAA's for them, which I still think was what 22nd. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Willemse, good, a great low stick. Everyone else is like solid. You cut fourth, 38th at Nutty Comb. Bella Jacobson, 33, 34 in the 10K. Nora Greben, 15th at Great Lakes. Like everyone has like this one or two good result that you're like, all right, you should be a solid top five finisher in this lineup. But you don't really have anybody that you're like, all right, we feel really good about them as their number two or a number three.
Right.
You have a bunch of women who are fourth and fifth scorers. Again, that's going to limit your upside, but it should insulate them from dropping that far. This is another team where I could see a big pack emerging, and if that pack exceeds expectations as a whole, then this is a team that can exceed expectations and again get maybe closer to that top 15. But to your point, unless someone steps up and is really a true number two, this team is always going to be a very like shallow in terms of their depth in their movement. They're going to probably be somewhere between 17 and 22 in our rankings the entire season.
Yes. And I have nothing more to say. Like I want to say more, but like it's just just a solid, fine, decent team. And I don't really know what more to say. They lose a lot. I'll say this: they lose a lot, but because their depth, is just so good, and because of how consistently good, just their overall stability as a scoring group is. I, I, I don't know. I want to say more, but I really just don't have that many notes on this team.
Well, let's go to a team on the men's side, our number 18 team in our rankings that has a very similar structure in a lot of ways as this Wisconsin team. I think their back end probably has a little bit more potential, and that is the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. They have Justine Kipkoech, who's an awesome low stake, third at pre-nationals. Didn't have the best national performance, but hey, you have we've seen the potential, right? He can be a true top 20 name in the country when he's firing at all cylinders. And then everyone else, it is solid, right? 1336 for Taha El Rui. Awesome performance. 106 though at NCAAs. You have other guys who have run in the 28, low 28s in the 10K in Miguel Bidel and Mohamed Jahari. You have a 841 steeplechaser in Amos Kameli. Like, you have a lot of really, really interesting names. I think El Rui could take that step to being a real true number two, but similar to Wisconsin, as we were talking about, it's a group that is, hey, you got a bunch of third through fifth scores, solid guys that should provide some stability. The only thing that I don't love saying stability for is this is a team that has not been very great at the national meet tradition. They really have to figure out peaking at the end of the season a little bit better. If they had been able to do that in years past, I think they're maybe 15th in the rankings, maybe a touch higher. I do think we do and I don't know if you felt this way. When I was looking at their rankings, I kind of held that against them. And I think putting them at 18th is appropriate because, again, this is a team that certainly could be close to the top 10 finish if all the talent works out. But we just have not seen all the talent work out for a long, long time when it comes to their performance at NCAAs.
So I kind of disagree in the sense that that you think they're similar to Wisconsin. I think they're actually very different.
Interesting.
I think they're extremely different. I think they have way more firepower, or at least we can at least project the firepower. I think they're way more complete, even if we have to piece it together a little bit.
I think it's depth. I think it's one guy and then a bunch of depth. Now, I agree with you. The firepower, the potential for that depth to someone to stick out is way, way better than Wisconsin.
Miguel Bidel coming in is huge.
Yep.
Amos Kameli coming in is huge. Brian Kimbatai rounds out this lineup. We really don't know much about him. He could be great. He could be just okay. But I think the upside's there. The problem is if you think they're so good and they have all these options, these lineup options and this firepower and this upside, then surely you think they're better than 18. But you can't rank a team better than 18, 17, wherever it is, when they finished dead last at the national meet in 2023 and then third to dead last in 2024. I think they were 29th, I want to say. So it's really hard when it's you can pinpoint a lot of guys and be like, oh, well, they can be great and they can be great and they can be great. But when they don't run well on the same day, it hurts. And Justin Kipkoech was a DNF last fall. So who's to say that more international names are not going to adjust well? I think this team is probably better than 18, but I don't think you can justify the ranking when you consider how poorly they've performed at the national meet.
Yep. No, totally agree. Again, they have names in the back end that should provide depth and give you the possibility of some upside. One of those 4 or 5 names that we just mentioned could break out and be a potential All-American, right? And suddenly you have 2 guys that could be All-Americans. And if that's the case, then yeah, we have them ranked too low. But there's just no getting away from the national performances. And until we see that, I think we're going to we've been too early on teams before. This could be a situation of us being a little late, but I think you have to look at the past results, and we're not saying they're going to be the 27th best team in the country. We're not pushing them that far down, but I think it is totally fair to drop them down a couple points in our rankings because of those performances.
I agree. We're moving on to number 18 on the women's side, Minnesota. And I have to be honest, think we may have been a little generous with this ranking. That was a little nice of us, but um, a team that we did not expect to break out last year
Hmm.
had a great fall. Was it? They were, I think, 18th at nationals. I think they were 14th. I want to say at pre-nationals. Uh, they didn't. They were fifth at Big Tens, which wasn't ideal, but they won Roy Griak on their home course. Ali Weimer is a true star, like a true legitimate star, and they've just got pieces, right? And I just struggle to believe that a team with Ali Weimer as your low stick, and
Yep.
then Isabel Schmitz as a 955 steeplechaser, and Zoe Dundon as a 952 steeplechaser. Like, I'm not giving up on Zoe Dundon. I know I was very high on her last fall, but I am not giving up on Zoe Dundon. Like, 952 steeplechase, she continued to have success this past spring. Her, Schmitz, Weimer, that should be a good enough top three to justify this ranking. Should be.
Yeah, you're banking on a lot of women in this lineup who have not produced at this kind of level in cross country, right? That where where they would need to be at for this ranking to feel appropriate at number 18, right? Like you said, Zoe Dundon and Schmitz, both of them haven't put together really cross country performances that would tell you that they are top three scorers for a top 20 team in the country. Now, they clearly have the talent to do so, but can they translate that? And the rest of this lineup, you can say a lot of the same things. Nora Hushigan, Hushigan's probably
Sure.
coming in from high school, 12th at Foot Locker cross country. Great pedigree. Can she translate that into quality success at the collegiate level? Same thing with Caitlin Osani, who was third at U20 USA's in cross country championships. Can she step in and be a productive scorer? There's just a lot of question marks here. Now, you have a lot of talent,
Mhm.
and I think that's why you feel comfortable putting them at 18. It's almost like the other side of the coin of Wisconsin, right? Where you see with Wisconsin, you see like a base level stability based off of past cross country performances, but you don't necessarily see a lot of upside based off of the track times. A little bit of the opposite situation here with Minnesota, where you see the track times, we don't really see the cross country performances to back those up quite yet. So they absolutely could break out like they did last year and end up 18th again. But we would be lying if there aren't a lot of question marks throughout this entire lineup.
There are, but at the same time, you can also project, like reasonably project.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
some of these names, like Nadia Phillips, right, and Izzy Romer. Like, Izzy Romer's a great stable piece, right, and I think Nadia Phillips will improve. And Caitlin Osani was third at U20 USAXE, which is a pretty solid result. Like, so there's a few things here where you certainly have questions, but it's not so many questions that it completely invalidates the ranking, or you can't see the upside, you can't see the vision. I do think we were a little generous, but I think after what they did last year, you know what, it's okay if we're a little generous because they proved us wrong. They were really, really good.
Yep, absolutely. Let's wrap up with our last two teams in the 17 spot. And on the men's side, we have the Colorado Buffalo, who return pretty much everyone from last year. Dean Casey leading the way. You have Dominic Sarum coming in as well, who can also give them a nice 1-2 punch there. You have a lot of 28-minute 10K guys, whether it's Wilson Georges or Gorgeous, James Overberg ran 28:20, Grady Rauba 28:42. Isaiah Givens was great on the track in the more middle distances. Can he translate that more on the grass? And Cole Matheson 8:30 in the steeplechase, starting to round into that steeplechase form we thought he could be coming out of high school. But this is a tough team to gauge because you have some interesting potential front runners, and then you have a solid block of talent who really needs to take a step forward on the grass for this team to be in the top 20 this season.
Yeah, this team was way better on the track, specifically in the spring,
Yes.
than maybe like I think some of us give them credit for. Like, I'm looking at just 4, 5 5 men went under 29 minutes in the 10K,
Yep.
which I know is a different bar nowadays with everything being so fast. But that's pretty good. It's pretty good. The problem with this team is that like last year they were kind of patchy. Like certain names were better at certain times. Like their national meet performance was fine, but they were 19th and they were a little bit patchy. Now Sarum comes in, Dominic Sarum, the 1333 5K guy from Toledo. Really nice injection there. I think he's going to help a lot. But like Cole, I don't know what I'm getting out of Cole Mattinson all the time.
Nope.
I don't know what I'm getting out of Givens all the time. I also they see like they have
So many.
tons of great depth and all these newcomers and like their recruiting class is
Unbelievable.
crazy good. It's so good. Will they even run? And I just don't know. I think I feel like we may have been a little too hard on Colorado, putting them at 17. Like I could realistically put them a bit higher. But what some people don't realize is also all the teams ahead of them, most of the teams ahead of them, I should say, bring in some really talented names that like the talent was just too good to not put them ahead of a team that was spotty at times last fall. I think they're going to be better, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. A little inconsistent. And one thing that I think would really give this team a boost, and to your point, who knows if any of them run, this recruiting class, one of these guys should break out. Like you have 12th at Foot Locker, 3rd at Foot Locker, 5th at Foot Locker, 2nd at NXN. Like, I mean, goodness, it's all basically half of the top 10 at Foot Locker is headed to Boulder this year.
Man, that is so true.
One of those guys is going to, if they don't redshirt them all, one of those guys is going to pop off. Like it's just, it would be almost impossible for one of them not to. So I think that gives them another piece, a potent piece in their lineup. Someone that I think realistically going to be a top 60, top 80 kind of runner based off of their talent. Now, I'm not going to tell you who out of the TJ Hansen, Trey Caldwell, Jack Graffio, Keegan Smith group is going to do that because I don't know enough, and no one, even if I did know enough, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I just think the odds are one of those guys pops off, and with that, they probably have a more potent lineup than what we're showing on paper here.
The more we talk about it, the more I regret not putting them higher. I'm scared. I think they're probably going to be way better. They got to be more consistent, but they got to be way better. So, all right, let's wrap it with North Carolina women at TSR number 17. Lose a lot. They lose a lot. They lose Taryn Parks. They lose Fatima Alanis. They lose, who else do they lose? One other key name I'm missing. Bryn Brown. That was the other one. So they're just not going to be as good as last year, in theory, or at least on paper. The good news, they bring in Vera Sojberg, who you and I are both very high on. They have tons of great young talent, tons of it. We are projecting with this group a little bit. We're kind of banking on a lot of development, a lot of upside. But Sydney Massarelli feels like if she finally figured it out this past spring, I think that'll be huge. Logan St. John Kletter, I think she's going to be really helpful. I think she'll be better this fall. Eva Klingbell, Sierra Shea. I mean, these are good women, and I can only see them improving. It's just a matter of how much will they improve. So I'm a little scared of this team, but now in my defense, you guys are the ones who were very high on them. So I was like, all right, fine, we can put them higher, but yeah.
I'm super high on Sjoberg. I think she's going to be awesome, and I think be a true low stick for this program, which I think is one of the reasons for optimism. And then you, again, similar to what we were just talking about on the Colorado side, you have some really interesting names coming in on the recruiting class. You have Parker Wolf's sister, Kinley Wolf, who's run 443, coming in as well. I think, again, you pencil in at least one true freshman in this lineup. You put in, again, some of the other women that you talked about in between Sjoberg and maybe that freshman. And I think this is a lineup that should be at least solid. with the potential, if as the season goes on, a lot of these underclassmen, freshmen kind of get their legs under them, this is a prime team that I think could take a big step forward from their first race of the season to their last. And we could be talking about, hey, after the first month of the season, we're like, yeah, they fell out of our rankings. And then at the end of the season, we're talking about them landing at the top 20 range where we have them right now.
I could also see the exact opposite happening, where it's like they actually get pretty good, and then they get to the national meet, they're like, oh, we're too young for this. There's no way. There's no shot. And then they collapse, which is like, it happens. It happens all the time. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think there's going to be some races where we look at them and you're like, you know what? I see the vision. And there's going to be other races where I'm like, no.
I just think, and this coaching staff knows better than I would expect them to kind of slow play this season a little bit. With the amount of youth, I think they're going to not, because I think there is the potential, like you're saying, of them, hey, being like pedal to the metal early in the season, going really hard at these races, and these youngsters, the wheels kind of falls off after a long season of running 5K, 6Ks week in or every other week. But I think if they slow play this, I think there's a lot of potential for a very, very strong wrap to the season. Anything else on North Carolina Tar Heels at number 17?
No, I think that is it. Good pod, productive pod. For anyone who hasn't done so already, 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I am reading my friend's group chat, by the way, as we are recording right now. My really sarcastic friend Dan said, just so everyone knows, this is a good one. And he said it's a good one. And as Lauren, my other friend in the chat, suggested, reminder to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe, which I thought was brilliantly put. They're all YouTube masterminds, marketing geniuses here in New Jersey, the best and brightest minds, which is a low bar, but nonetheless. About it.
Hey, you said it, I didn't. All right, well, let's wrap it there. You go enjoy the day with your buds. Until next week, I'll talk to you.